Welcome back to the Illuminated Path podcast. And for today's episode, I'm excited to be introducing a new type of episode where we're going to be doing a podcast swap. So I had the honor of being on the Expanders Club podcast earlier this year, got to sit down with one of their hosts, Brooke, to talk all about misalignment and understanding the cycles of our life. And I wanted to bring this episode and this conversation to the Illuminated Path because it was actually one of the first interviews that I did since launching Well Within, which is our year-long membership where we go through aligning to the seasons, to the lunar cycle, and to our feminine cycle. And this was one of the first episodes where I got to really share a bit about the inspiration behind the program, the creation of the program, and one of my favorite topics, which is around cyclical living and living in alignment. So again, super excited to share this podcast with you. Definitely check out the Expanders Club. We'll drop all of the links in the show notes. And they are a podcast that really focuses on uncovering how to live an expansive life. So I feel like this conversation aligns right with the work that they do, and excited to bring this conversation to you. So let's dive in.
Livia, welcome to the Expanders Club podcast. I am so happy to have you and so happy to meet you. This is our first time connecting and meeting.
Yes, thank you for having me on, and it's so nice to meet you as well.
Yes, so we're gonna have a lot of fun with our conversation today. I think there's a lot of topics that you are an expert in that our audience is very interested in. But first, because I don't know you, I'm really eager to hear, one, can you share exactly what it is that you do with the audience? And then I'd love to dig into a little bit of your origin story and what got you to where you are.
Yes, thank you. So I'm the founder of Wellness Collective. I'm based in Guam, a beautiful tropical island, pretty remote. So out here, basically in the Pacific Ocean. And I started Wellness Collective about 6 years ago. And we do a range of things all around holistic health. I really moved home to start a movement on Guam. There was very little access to a lot of what I've brought home, which is around, yoga, meditation, breath work, like all of the practices that have impacted my life in so many ways. And so the main things I do here, I teach yoga, but I also host retreats, and I am a women's health coach. So I have programs actually for not just for people who are based on Guam, but people who live around the world who are really looking to get into alignment with their life. And most people or women find me when they're in the midst of a transition, like they're getting ready to move or start a business or relationship ended or whatever it might be. And they're looking for some support and some guidance on like how to be in that in-between zone of like, I'm in transition and I'm moving into this next chapter. It's evolved quite a bit since I started it 6 years ago. And I'm feeling really excited about this year and just some of the new sort of evolutions of the work that I started.
What does alignment mean to you?
Yeah, great question. And this comes up a lot because alignment can be also very subjective, right? Of like, what does it feel like for me to be in alignment versus what does it feel like for you to be in alignment versus the person that's listening? But for me, when I think of alignment, or oftentimes it's defined by when people feel out of alignment, right? Then they're like, I really feel like out of alignment. I can tell what it means. And so oftentimes that can look like I'm not doing the things that I say that I want to do. Like, for example, I might have all these goals, but I'm not actually walking the walk, that I'm not actually living and embodying what I say I want. And that can be a big cause of misalignment. It can also be around the environments that we're in, right? Maybe there's a job that doesn't feel aligned, a relationship that doesn't feel aligned, a city that doesn't feel aligned, right? And so there can be a lot around, is the environment matching this person that I am, creating and embodying? And then I think a lot, what I find to be super interesting is looking at just our decision making and how clear we are when we are able to make a decision of like, this is a yes, this is a no, this is a not right now. And I find that when we are living in alignment, it's less like stalling and less, feeling stuck. We feel a lot more flow, a lot more ease. And that
Yeah.
comes in our decisions for, everything from our morning routine to like, are we going to take the job? So I find that those are some,
Yeah.
I guess, a lens to look at alignment.
But I love that kind of perspective or that positioning where we often don't actually know what alignment is, but we certainly know when we feel misaligned. So that's a really interesting piece of the human journey, right? The ability to recognize misalignment, but still not know what alignment actually means. And I want to dig into that, but I, if I had to guess, I would say there's a story that got you that got you to where you are. We don't often journey just for the fun of it. So tell me, can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yes, definitely. So yeah, my journey, of course, I call myself an aligned living coach. So of course I've had some experience of getting myself into alignment like time and time again. And I would say, for me, when I think back on what was that spark that made me think, I want to go full in into this work and really dive into it. It was my own journey. So about 6 years ago, pre-starting Wellness Collective. So just a little bit of background. I grew up here on Guam, was raised here on Guam, and then I spent a good chunk of my adult life in California. So I was living in San Francisco, in San Diego, and basically everywhere in California. And then I moved to Amsterdam, and I lived in Amsterdam for a few years, and before I decided to come home. So I had sort of made these little stops in different cities and experience different, different environments, different people. And when I decided to make the move back home to Guam, it was very intentional. And I basically changed mostly everything in my life in a very short amount of time. So,
Mhm.
I think deciding to move abroad was a big piece of it. I moved with my
Yeah.
job at the time, but I was about 8 years into my, corporate job, 9 to 5. It was an amazing job. It gave me a lot of opportunities. I was traveling. I was like very comfortable. But as I was coming up to this 8-year mark in my career, I was like, why do I feel so unfulfilled? Why am I, leaving work early to go to my yoga class and then trying to take all my time off going to retreats? And like, I had this kind of balance of, work was work, but then on my passion was really wellness and
Yeah.
diving into my own spiritual journey. And so when it came to this decision of like, do I stay in Amsterdam and do I stay in this job? Or do I really make a big shift in my life? And so, along with leaving Amsterdam, I'm going to move home to Guam. I'm going to start my business and that was right before COVID, just like in terms of like a timing perspective. So, kind of divine timing, and that I made all those shifts and then
Mhm.
was here for that. Um,
Yes.
I, got out of a long-term relationship that was really, um, a really hard choice. It was really easy to be comfortable, and that could have been marriage. That could have been, a long-term thing, but something in my gut really was like, this is not it. This is not what I had imagined. So it was the untangling of like relationship, career, location. And at the same time coming home, I decided to do my yoga teacher training, get my health coaching certification, like really go all in to creating this wellness business. And so that for me was like, how do I get myself in alignment? For me, it came like very, very like fast and like we're changing everything. But
Burn it all
yeah,
down and
exactly.
start over. Yes.
Exactly. But I feel like it was necessary and it kind of one step led to the other, right? It's like, okay, this place isn't aligned, the work isn't aligned, the relationship isn't aligned. And it started to kind of reveal itself alongside me doing the inner work and really going deep into my own practices. So that's a little bit about my first evolution story into this work.
What did it take to make those decisions, though? Because those are not small decisions. And you could have just made one, right? You could have left your job, stayed in the relationship. You could have moved to a different city. Like any one of those would have been a very big thing, right? And most people would have started would have started there. What was happening? Like what were the thought patterns? What was the emotion? What was happening that made you so sure or so clear that it all had to go?
Yeah, there were bits of it that were practical, and then there were bits of it that were definitely like the unseen, right? Kind of just like the knowing and
Hmm.
the feeling. I would say on the practical side, like for me, I do like to, and that's what I bring into my coaching too. It's like we can talk about, all the ideas and the concepts, but what's the plan, right? What are we doing?
Yeah.
And so for me, that did look like starting to dip my toe into like, can I start my own business? Can I be an entrepreneur? Like that was kind of the thing that I sat with the longest. And so even with my, the coaching program I did to become a health coach, I started that while I was still in my job. So like by the time I left my job, I was like, well, I've already got this certification. So it was kind of like little by little. I'm like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
just dip my toe in this. I'm gonna dip my toe in this. But I was really preparing myself for the bigger change and the bigger shift from a knowing perspective. And just I almost call it like the calling is like whenever I would come home to
Hmm.
Guam, like every holiday season, I would always leave and just feel this deep sense of like, I don't know, just longing to be there. Not necessarily because I thought it's going to be easy and it's going to be, amazing, but I was like, there's something for me to do here. There is something is calling me to do
Hmm.
this work. I can't quite put my finger on it. And then when the puzzle pieces align, where you're like, okay, this is my last day of work, and oh, there just so happens to be a teacher training in Bali at that time, and oh, this just you're just like, okay, let's just. It
Yes.
seems from the outside perspective, it seems like, whoa, that was fast, but for me, it was like little listening. It was listening for some time.
Yeah, and that trusting, it sounds like you really leaned into trust and surrender and just following the breadcrumbs. But I'm gonna guess that because a lot of people, I think we think, okay, that burn it all down moment, I've got rid of all the things. Perfect. Now I'm aligned. You show up in Guam, you're ready to start your business, or you maybe have started it. I'm gonna guess that wasn't exactly the moment where you're like, cool, got this all figured out. I'm aligned, good to go.
Yeah. Yes, because I moved back, I like literally landed here around Christmas and my first launch event. So I was going to go full on live events, retreats. I'm going to start there. Like, let's get the community together. So I literally had my launch events like in February, like a series of like 1, 2, 3 events. And then I was going to announce, the retreats. And of course, lockdown, it just happened right in the middle
Yes.
of that. And so
Wow.
I had
Yeah.
to pretty immediately be like, well, I guess I'm starting with coaching then. Like, I guess I'm doing everything online. I guess my first yoga teach or yoga class I taught from getting certified was like wearing a mask. I was like, this is not how I'm
Oh my
supposed to be teaching.
gosh. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was a huge lesson in self-trust. So I was like, great, I just did all of this work to get myself into this aligned thing and experience. And now I'm having to really be like, the universe is like, how bad do you want this
You're like,
right now?
what message is the universe sending me?
Yes, but I do feel like when I think back on and I just hit my 6 year, anniversary at this time, like February 1st, and I think back and I'm like, wow, that really set me up to be resilient, to be adaptable, to really
Mhm.
create community. And I do feel like I was supposed to start the business at that time because then, oh, all of a sudden everyone's thinking about their health, their mental health, their holistic health. Like
Yeah.
everyone needs
Yeah.
this type of work. So I felt from that perspective that the timing the timing worked in a way.
Yes, it always does, right? There's always a larger force at play, and like we like to pretend like we are the ones making the plans, right? But there's always a bigger plan. So, are you now? You said you went back. One of the things was you wanted to service your community in Guam. Tell us about how your services and how the retreats work. I'm assuming that people outside of Guam are welcome, and you work with people outside of Guam as well.
Yes, yes. So, yeah, we kind of divide the two different, two different types of things I do as experiences and then programs. So on the experiences
Mm.
side, I started off here, kind of the journey that people typically do is they come and they take one of my yoga classes or they'll come to one of my sound baths and then they'll be like, I want a little bit more, right? Like let's say I want a little bit more. So then maybe they'll come to a day retreat, right? They'll come for a full self-care, mindset retreat type of day. And then typically they'll be like, I want a little bit more. So then a lot of
Mm,
people on Guam have been like, where are we going? So I've had retreats now, in Bali, in Kauai, in Siargao in the Philippines, in this beautiful island, Palau. I'm always like drawn towards the islands. And in Sayulita also that was a different retreat, but having is people I've noticed here on Guam as they start to get deeper into their journey, they want to experience, an international or destination retreat to really, I always consider retreats as like the portal. It's like this little portal that
yes.
exists, right?
Yes.
And then so much change happens. So that has been something, and that's something that people from all over the world have been able to join and kind of meet me in different places around the world. But then the coaching side is brand new. Like when I moved home, there was one other person that I knew that was a health coach that was doing coaching every now and then. No female coaches, no when everyone was like health coach, holistic health coaching. What is that? So a big piece of my work here has been like slowly the education process of like why even what is
Yeah.
a coach and what is holistic health and you know over the 6 years, the coaching has evolved a lot and to include a lot more mindset, a lot more relationships, a lot more around even like our home environment. So it's really expanded. My work has expanded alongside like just the growth I've done on on a personal side. But yeah, most people are working with me for either coming to yoga and events and retreats. And then also to coaching, and then they kind of weave, right? So, like coaching clients come to retreats, it all kind of connects.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love the energy of how you operate. What's your astrology? Do you know your top three?
Yeah, so I'm a Cancer sun, a Leo moon, and a Scorpio rising.
Okay. Scorpio rising. Yes, I
Yeah.
was feeling some of that. Cancer. And I've had a series of guests on recently that I'm a Cancer sun. We've had a lot of Cancer suns coming on. But that all makes sense. It
Yeah.
all makes a lot of sense. And you do have this very safe, hold space, like parental motherly energy to you in a really like loving way, and of course that's your Cancer sun. But had you have you always had that? Have you always leaned into that? Like what was life like when you were working in corporate? What was the moment, and maybe there wasn't one moment, but what was the moment that you were like, I need to lean this way a little bit more, or I need to start my discovery journey?
Yeah. Yeah. So in the yeah, definitely connect with my Cancer sun quite a bit. Like I always have. For me, becoming it like into the business world, I've started to lean into the Scorpio a little bit more and like really like tune into that Scorpio rising.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny how like the chart unfolds over time. But yeah, me in the corporate side. So I worked at a tech company that worked with like events. So I've always been in kind of the event live experience
Okay.
world, which was a very easy translation to like I don't want to just help people with planning events. I actually want to be the event creator. That to me
Yeah.
felt like yeah, that was a big moment for me to be like, I don't want to just be behind the scenes. I want to be the one that's creating the event. So that was a huge thing. And then I think just get it at one point in my job, before I left, like I was traveling all over the world. Like I was going to different offices. I was the one that was training every new person that was coming into the business at the time. And so yeah, I was in London and then I was in Spain and then I was going to Argentina and then Australia. Like it was this amazing job, an amazing role. And I was meeting all different types of people, right? And just sparking that like wanderlust travel. I want to see the world, which I feel like definitely sparked the retreat,
Yes, absolutely.
experiences too. And just being able to work with all these different people. But I would just notice that I would be going to all these places and I'd always be seeking out. I was like, okay, where's the yoga studio? How can I like just immerse myself in the wellness things in this destination? And then the point was just starting to marry the two. It's like, how do I bring my love for events and live experiences and my love for wellness and all the spirituality kind of down the rabbit hole of that? How do I bring those together? And that was like, Wellness Collective. And then when I thought about place, I was like, where do I keep feeling called? Like there's something for me to do.
Hmm.
Like where would it actually have the most impact versus like maybe a city that I'm just living in for now? And so that was
Right.
kind of like the convergence of like, I gotta go home.
Yeah. What would you say your purpose, calling, mission, like, what do you feel like, what's that guiding light for you?
Gosh, that's a big one. That's a big question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely
Yes, it is.
yeah, that's a big question. I definitely feel like just from what I know now in my work, I definitely know that I want to and need to be in this space of transformation, like where people are making these big transitions, big life changes, and being in that space, whether it's like supporting them as a coach, supporting them in retreat, just like sparking like an idea, aha moment. I feel like that's definitely the space that I'm in right now. And I feel like, especially maybe because I started on like with COVID and everything was online, I feel so powerfully about the connection that happens in person, right?
Hmm.
Like just like the
Yes.
live, nothing, that's something that AI will not take over, right? Like we cannot
Yes.
change that that live experience. And so I feel like and at least what that looks like for my work is more gatherings, more retreats, more circles, more like getting that intimate experience where people are transforming. And I've, as I've changed myself over the past couple, 6 years, I became a mom a few years ago. I'm obviously now fully into my entrepreneurial journey. I find myself being really called to like work with moms, work with entrepreneurs, like work
Hmm.
with, I know
Hmm.
they say like, oh, typically your client or your niche is like you 5 years ago. And I feel like me now at this point, I'm like, oh yeah, me 5 years ago was different than the first 5 years ago. So
Yeah.
I'm starting to
Yeah.
kind of like change who I work with too.
You talk about both alignment and fulfillment. Are they the same thing?
I feel like alignment is part of the process towards fulfillment. Like it's
Hmm.
kind of the work that you need to do
Yeah.
in order to feel more fulfilled and really be like kind of unlock all the potential that you have comes from the kind of messy alignment work that gets to
Yes.
happen along the way. So they are connected, but I definitely that's why I feel like aligned living is not just like, oh, I got into alignment that one time, right? It's like, how is this just part of my life of figuring out what feels aligned to me?
Yeah, and it's a lifestyle too, right? The way the reality and the way you position it is it's a never, not to say this in a way that sounds discouraging, but it's a never-ending process, and like we are constantly making the choice to be and operate in alignment or not. And it sounds like a lot of the work you do is uncovering and bringing clarity to people of this is what alignment means and feels like to me. Versus we can it can be a head spinning journey if you don't have guidance, I think.
100%.
One of the topics that you talk about that I am really excited to dig into, and have a lot of questions is cyclical living or cyclical lifestyle. Where do we start there? Can you can you tell us what that means, and then let's dig into the different pieces of it.
Yes, definitely. This has been like really a core piece of my work that has just taken more and more shape over the past couple years that now it is like a full program, year-long experience that I'm taking women through. But when I look at cyclical living and I talk a lot about sacred cycles, right? Looking at nature, looking at things that exist that happen. For example, the main three ones that I kind of refer to are looking at the seasons, looking at the moon, and then looking at our feminine cycle. And for me,
Mhm.
when I had that moment of just mapping those three and realizing like, okay, these are the moon phases, right? I'm doing all this work around the moon with my events. And then I started to look at the seasons. Okay, these are the seasons. Then I started to like really tune into my own cycle, just the different phases of it. And when I noticed that, oh my gosh, all of them are very similar, like all the phases are mapping and like the energy and just how the connection to it. So for me, when I think of cyclical living, it's really connecting to those sacred cycles that exist and starting to just make more intentional choices about lifestyle,
Mm,
about your practices, your habits based off of that. So those are kind of the three lenses that I look at.
yeah, I love that. But where does someone start? Because one thing that I feel, and I'm sure a lot of listeners will agree, our lives aren't really built around cycles. I mean, energetically, they are very much. And like, that is actually our reality, right? Like, we can't, the moon's doing its thing, nature's doing its thing, our bodies are doing their things. But I feel like we're in this constant fight against that. And we're constantly being shoved into these systems. I will give you an example. I am 31 weeks pregnant. So I've been pregnant for 7.5 months. And the other day, and with pregnancy, there's of course ups and downs, but it's kind of like there's these three moments entering into each trimester. And like, that's when there's a little bit of a hormonal shift, or at least this is my experience. There's a few days of some shifting, and then you're kind of steady. You're kind of steady for like weeks and months. And I had this moment the other day where I was like, shit, when this pregnancy is over, I'm back to being, having a cycle and being in that flow where it's essentially constant change. And there was like just sort of a little bit of an anxiety around that, of like, hey, this has been nice to feel. Pregnancy has felt a little more predictable to me than my everyday, 28-day cycled life. So I just want to share that because I think it's relatable. And also, it was this moment of like, okay, I have to get back to paying attention to that, thinking about that, thinking about how much it impacts my brain, my decision making, my emotions, my energy. And it feels a little bit like a task because we're so detached.
Yes, I totally hear you. And yeah, when I was pregnant and even just like postpartum and just returning back to my cycle, like there is, yeah, you're in the pregnancy birth sort of portal of like time is time, and like your body is just going through so many different things. I totally feel you on that. And that's why I think looking like having those three, I guess those three different areas to look at, right? Seasons, the lunar cycle, and the feminine cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I did a workshop the other day where, there was a number of men on there, and there were also like women who are maybe in perimenopause or in menopause. And they're like, well, what if I don't have a cycle, right? And how do I still live in this like cyclical, intentional way? So for that, right, it is looking at some of the two others, right? How do we lean into the lunar cycle and the seasons while also connecting to our body's cycle if we do have one or when it does return? But the energy is the same, right? It's like looking at the times where we're in the winter, right? The deep winter, the new moon
Mm-hmm.
time. And I think about that right now, like around this time of year, the beginning of the year, where the energy is like, let's go, vision boards, goal setting. Like we are like so productive, like have to do that when we are in winter, right? And like we're in this winter
Yeah.
phase. And so just allowing there to be like that, like, okay, it's winter. How do I embody the energy of the winter? Even,
Yes.
for example, I live on a tropical island. There's no winter here, but I still
Right.
bring in, like, how do I bring that energy of the like sort of going inward, stillness, restoration? How do I bring that into my practices, into my work, like into how I operate, knowing that spring is really going to be the time that like my creativity is like I'm going to be in a different phase. And for me, I've looked at my business through this lens. So, when I'm
Yes.
planning my launches, when I'm planning my speaking, when I'm planning, certain things, it's like, how do I, when I do my podcast, right? I try to plan it around when that energy is going to be high. And of course, sometimes it doesn't always map perfectly, right? You might be like, oh, first day of my cycle and I have to do this thing, right? But
Right.
I like to have the awareness of what's happening in the world from a seasons and lunar cycle perspective. And it's as easy as like on Google Calendar, like there is the moon phases that you can put on your Google Calendar. So I'm seeing
Yes.
like, okay, when's the new moon? When's the full moon? Where are we going with each? So just the awareness is step one, right? Just knowing like what
Yes.
energy of the season we're in, of the lunar cycle we're in, where am I at even in my cycle? Do I even track it? That's going to be kind of step one for someone who's like, I'm kind of curious about this.
I love that because otherwise, and I felt this so many times in my life, let's just take the seasons, for example. It feels like you're fighting against something. Like you're fighting against the natural energy of the world and of our the true systems, not the man-made ones. But this year, I'm just about to hit the year mark for the first time in 16 years, have lived in a place that has all four seasons. And it's mostly summery, but there's like a slight adjustment. And I have to tell you that it has brought a real sense of peace to my nervous system in a way that I didn't know that I needed. And it has been this, like, when the weather changes, you can't help but have this little literal reminder, and your body reacts to it. And you're like, okay, it is a time for more coziness and being a little bit slower. And then summer, I live in North Carolina and we're by the beach and it's so beautiful and it's like go, go, go time. So that has been has brought about the awareness to me in a different way, where when I lived in Southern California, it was just like go, 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 go all the time, which is a fun energy to be in. But as you probably know and have seen, it leads to burnout when we're not paying attention to the cycles, to the seasons, not listening. It is really this energy that we're resisting and fighting against. So I love that example that anyone can relate to of the seasons. Like, we all know this. And like you said, it's about bringing in that awareness and giving ourselves permission to, right? I'm sure that's something that you work on with people. Like, how hard is it for people to give themselves permission to operate within cycles?
Yes, that is huge. And like you meant, I love that you live in the like four seasons now, because it's like just having that like just outside looks different, what you're wearing looks different, what you're ordering looks different, like nature looks different. It's just a constant reminder of basically the shifts in, we're going to go inward, we're going to start to come out a little bit, we're going to be celebration, right? And then we're going to be going back towards that cycle that exists, right? And I guess the hardest phase, or like part of the cycle that I find, that I'm coaching my clients through constantly, is the ability to sit in the winter, the ability to be in the winter, the ability to be in the new moon energy, right? When the sky is dark, when it's really like a time to plant seeds and set intentions. And this comes from the natural human behavior of like, I did a big thing and then I want to do the next big thing. Like, what's next, right? And just like the accomplishment cycle that exists. So having that time of like, this is actually going to be a time of just like ideation. This is going to be a time of just sitting with an idea and not having to produce something and execute something all the time. And that comes up a lot for people, right? The permission to rest, the permission to take your time, the permission to like go inward and not have to feel pressure to always be doing the next thing. That's a constant thing, right? Everyone's working through. So I would say the winter is the most common phase, part of the cycle, menstrual phase, new moon phase. That's going to be the hardest one to, I guess, to come to terms with in some ways. The one that I find the most exciting, which at the workshop I led the other day, I asked everyone, like, which season do you connect the most with? Or are you most excited about based off of like your plans this year? And everyone was like, spring, 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 spring. And when I think about spring too, I also think like, okay, how can we use this energy of like freshness and like the budding energy coming back, whether it's in your cycle or like in the moon phases. I love it's called the sliver of hope. It's like the little crescent, like the little tiny little light when the moon starts to come back. It's like that energy of hope and freshness. Like, how do we actually use that, right, in our lives, whether it's like to start a project or to like actually create something. So just like being able to harness the energy that is already existing, whether we're paying attention to it or not, and like really bring that into our lives.
And it's so interesting because you don't have to be tapped in to feel these. Like, we all feel these things on some level, no matter what. Even the moon, like, we're so drawn to the moon at certain times. When we see a full moon, we're so drawn to it. I mean, the full moon, whenever I'm feeling crazy, my daughter's acting up, my friends' kids are acting up, I'm like, it's a freaking full moon. I know it. Like, go outside and look, you're like, sure. Of course it's a full moon. And so we're all connected to this and feeling it. But I think that it is that awareness and that permission piece that are missing. Let's talk about the ROI on this, because I think that it's like, okay, yes, this like becomes a logical thing. Like, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. But what's the return on our us living and being attuned to this, cyclical lifestyle?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. So when I think about, why even explore this, right? Why even look at this? And it's going to obviously be different at different stages in your life. But when I talked about that process of alignment, the messy process of getting into alignment on your way to a more fulfilled life, a piece of that is going to be starting to really understand yourself and to start to allow things to make sense, right? Like what you just said, like
Mm,
when I feel emotional or when my kids are acting up or whatever, we're able to look at like, what else might be at play here, right? Oh, I'm just about to get my period. It's also the full moon. It's also like this season of like where the energy is a certain way, right? We're able to start to make sense of how we feel and start to feel it's not so out of our control. It's not like we're living unaware.
hmm.
We have a couple of lenses to look at to be like, okay, this makes sense. And also to help us plan ahead, right? Of plan, like I said, for me, the biggest shifts I've made when I look at my cycle is like, okay, how am I working? How are my workouts and how am I working? Right. And those are two
Yes.
things that for
Yeah.
me are super practical. It's like, no, I don't need to be doing the most high intensity workouts, movements my entire cycle, right? I can kind of based off of where I'm at, be able to fine tune my practices, fine tune my habits. And that to me, I feel like is a way to really unlock more of like our awareness, our potential, and just our capacity, right? When we're not going through like, oh,
Yes.
I feel crazy or I feel bad or I feel whatever.
Yes.
And I don't know why. It's like, let's start to tune in and be able to make some connections of like what's happening naturally in the body and then also in the world.
Yeah, or in this battle with the natural energy that like we're never going to win, right? So we're like it's like treading water
Hmm.
or you're running against the wind pressure is the exact same speed that you're running. Like you're not actually getting anywhere and you're just exhausting yourself by
Hmm.
not being a part of these cycles, not being tuned into them and not like you said making the most and then in the down times, in the slower times giving yourself permission to slow down because I'm sure you've seen, and I'm sure you've seen the clients, there is so much value in those slow times too. And that's a hard lesson for people to you have to do it to learn it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And because I work mainly with women, primarily with women, I can't tell you how many people have told me over the past years. And the reason why I'm so passionate about sharing this with people too is because I also didn't start to really connect in this way until fairly recently. And as women, when we start to really look at like our cycle in this, it's a superpower, right? It is a superpower.
Yes.
The more that we can tune into this like feminine intuition, our feminine cycle, so many women have said like, wait, why aren't we learning this? Why didn't we learn this in school, right? Why didn't we know this before? Like, why am I in my 30s and now figuring out like what my cycle is and how
Yeah.
to track it and all of that? So I feel like this knowledge is power for women and also just starts to make you see how special your body is. I mean, you're in freaking, 31 weeks pregnant, right? You're like, what is happening in my body? It's wild. So
Yes.
that just like feminine superpower of our cycles and then adding on the moon, which also has that feminine energy. And then, yeah, just all kind of blows my mind sometimes, but I love to find
Yes.
ways to get just practical of like, okay, let's just start with awareness. Let's start with tracking. Let's look at rituals. Let's look at habits and like how do we make this more integrated into our lives.
Yeah. What are some of the things that people can do or some of the tools or the fun hacks that people can do to kind of start to pay attention more and integrate?
Yeah. So I really love to set aside and like carve off time and space, whether it's something you do personally at home or, nowadays there's so many events or different things that you can attend. I like selfishly have now created all my events I create all my events around the moon. So there's like a new moon sound bath, a full moon event, a seasonal retreat. So I know that I'm going to have those check-in
Yeah.
points of like, I'm going to know where we're at. I'm going to have time to reflect and just creating those times to check in, right? Like putting on your
Yes.
calendar, when are the two equinoxes? When are the solstices? Like knowing what is happening just simply from that like calendar awareness. But then for me, I love to figure out, what kind of ritual, what kind of practice, what kind of habit feels really good for me. For some people, it's journaling. For other people, they're going to go, meditate. For other people, it's like, I'm going to go, outside in nature. I'm just going to look at the moon, right? It's like creating these little practices and these little rituals just to honor like the change of the seasons, the change of the moon.
Mhm.
I mean, from a super practical perspective, you can follow a million accounts that do all these kind of things. So your algorithm can be very much hacked into cyclical living. I love to curate, what I'm seeing. And I'm like, okay, everyone, my algorithm is all like full moon things, right? Or new moon things. So you can definitely from that perspective know more. Okay, we're going into the year of the horse, right? That's all my whole algorithm is that
Yes.
right now. That can,
Oh,
just from a knowledge perspective of just awareness.
yeah. The one thing I worry about is that people get a little too crazy with it because there is so much
So much
information
information.
out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of times I think in wellness and spirituality, we start to give it almost goes in the opposite direction of what we were meant, right? Like this is supposed to be a very empowering journey, as you know, and I can tell that's how you teach it and that's how you share it with your students and your community. But I feel like we can give that power away. And it's like, okay, I have all my astrologers that are telling me when the moon's changing or the season. And it can feel like a lot of information to keep up with. And it can also feel very confusing when actually what you spoke about in the very beginning when we started talking about this type of living and this type of tuning in is it's very intuitive,
Mhm, mhm.
actually. Like our
Totally.
bodies know, we know. So what advice do you have there? Like what do we like we want to start to tune in just enough to just enough stuff, right? So that we can kind of start to feel it intuitively because we might not be there yet, right? Where
Mhm,
we're totally in tune intuitively with it. But that's the goal, right? Is to get there. So your intuition knows like, hey, I can feel the full moon coming, or, I know that the seasons are about to change. I
mhm,
know that I'm in this part of my cycle. But where do we kind of draw the line?
mhm.
Or, what are the tools that are necessary versus the ones that might just be noise?
Yes, totally. And I love that you mentioned that too, because there definitely is a lot of noise. There's definitely a lot of noise with it. But what I like to go back to, like, is really thinking about, and again, maybe was part of like starting in COVID, right? When we did it, we couldn't see, it was a little bit less noisy at that time from this perspective. But I always like to think
Hmm.
about the number one way to get back in touch with the idea of these sacred cycles is to be outside, to get outside, to get in
Mm,
nature in some capacity, like get in the ocean, take the walk, like feel
yes.
the feet, feel your feet in the ground, right? That is the biggest connection, almost like the plug, like plugging the power in, like
Yeah.
that is going to be it. Like finding that connection to where you are, connection to the land, depending on like, your culture and where you're from. Also, even looking into like how did your ancestors use the moon, right? How did that to me has been huge, like moving back
I love
home and
that.
being like, I'm half Chamorro, which is the culture here on Guam. So like I look at what is the Chamorro culture did, and they have all sorts of ways that they looked at the moon. So
Mhm.
I'm sure we all can kind of trace back, to our ancestors, like where this deep connection. If you look at calendars, if you look at farming, if you look at animal migration, like there's so much of that like connection to nature that is tied to the seasons and the moon. So finding what you are interested in, right? Finding like which is the spark for
Yes.
you. For some people, it's going to be
Yes.
like, oh, yeah, okay, the tides and the moon, that connection. I feel that, right? For some people, it's going to be like, I know they even say with births, right? There's more births around the full moon. So
The full
everyone just
moon. My
yeah.
daughter was born on a full
Oh,
moon.
yeah. So amazing. So yeah, there's so much that is existing already, right? It's just us
Yes.
finding like, okay, what sits with us deeply. And when I think
Yes.
about the biggest I guess, thing to cultivate in your life for cyclical living, it is spaciousness. It's just having a little bit more space to think, to know, to have the awareness. And that is like a lifelong practice, right? It's like creating spaciousness in your life. But if you find yourself being like, I don't know where to start, I don't know, like even just creating a little bit of space in your calendar, in your life,
Yeah.
um, starts to that process of going inwards.
That's the theme. That's a huge theme. in this whole expansion spiritual journey, right? Is space, silence to bring about the awareness and the consciousness. Would you say if someone is like, okay, I want to take some action today, what would you say? Like, would you say it's the tuning into the full moon and the new moon, or where would you say someone could start with a very simple practice?
Mm. Very simply, I would say yes. Start with knowing, just look up, when's the full moon, when's the new moon. Put that on your calendar in some way. And on those dates, create a little bit of space for yourself to just intuitively notice, like, what do I feel like doing today? What do I want to do?
Yeah,
I would say, yeah, different practices are going to serve different people. So really feel into, like, for you, maybe it is just like, I'm going to go for a beach walk at sunset and like watch the moon rise. Like that can be super powerful. Or I'm just going to go sit outside at night and look up at the stars, look up at the moon, just be there. And that could be it. New moon, I actually find to be super powerful for me. And that was something that I just started to notice, like, wow, around every new moon, I get all these ideas. Like I just started to notice, like, oh wow,
I
I'm having all
love
these like
that. Yes.
creative sparks. And then I started to look back and be like, oh, it's actually always around the new moon that I like have the idea for the program or the thing or whatever it might be. So I started to really cultivate that and be like, okay, I'm gonna just create some space for myself to just think, to just like have a pen and paper and just like
Hmm.
zoom out a little bit. And because it's that blank slate energy, I actually really like the new moon because it's the full moon can be quite intense, but the new moon's like inward, and yeah, I find it to be a really special time. So I would say start there. People can look at the moon everywhere they are. Doesn't matter. Doesn't have cycles or where you
Isn't
live in the
that
world, right?
amazing?
It's like
Yes.
we all have the moon, right? We all have the moon to
That,
as a guide.
yeah, that's a pretty, actually, just like for pause there for a moment, that's a pretty incredible thing. Like we all have access to this amazing tool and teacher. I mean, I'm sure you feel this way too. So I'm a Cancer sun and Cancer moon, and I'm just like, the
Yes,
moon is my
guided.
boss.
Yeah,
Often, well, sometimes on a full moon, I'm like, I'm the moon's bitch,
yeah.
in a loving way, because it just takes she does what she wants with me. But it's so powerful, and especially if you live near the ocean too, I think you can witness very easily the power of the moon, and that's a whole different energetic connection too. But I love that reminder of like every single person on the earth gets to look up in the sky and witness this tool and be a part of that. And what a also a symbol of like our collective connection.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I did right after my first like yoga teacher training is I took a training called Yoga and the Lunar Cycle. And I remember the teacher was like, the moon is magical and it can just be magical. It doesn't have to mean anything, right, to anyone. It's just like, that is magical. But she was like, but we're going to go into like, this some of the science behind it and how to connect this into your thing. She was like, it's okay if it's for some people, it's just, wow, that's beautiful. That's in the sky. Like that's a magical, element to it. So that to me has just sparked this deeper, like, I need to know all the things. Right? I need to like
Yes.
really dive into
Yes.
this. And the more I go into cyclical living and create like have it be part of my life, the more that I kind of return back to the thing that that teacher said. I'm like, yeah, it's just magical.
Yes.
That's your reason.
The moon is also my one of my go-to examples for any naysayers, which really is my husband, who, is like, astrology isn't real or where's the science? I'm like, the moon, dude. It looks like you feel it. I know you feel it. We all stop and are awestruck by it. Like there is science behind what it does to our bodies, what it does to the oceans, like the magnetism that it has with the earth. Like the moon covers it all. I don't, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
there definitely is. Yeah, there's times that my husband now he's like, whenever he's not sleeping well, he's like, "Where are we in the moon? In the lunar cycle?" I'm like, I know, right?
oh
It's a
yes,
full moon and you're not sleeping again.
yes.
It's
I
just
know we're getting there. We're tipping. My husband's going through his awakening. And we're tipping it. But I'm always like, he's like, I don't know why I had a terrible night of sleep. I'm like, the moon. It was the moon. I love that. And I love again, the general, like, it's really simple, right? Like, yes, there's a lot of information and tools that we can use on the path to alignment and also this path to cyclical living, which puts us in alignment, like assists us in alignment. But a lot of the things that you're talking about is like, hey, just slow down, create space, bring an awareness to your day to day. And like this stuff is actually so intuitive and we're so energetically connected to it all.
Yes. And it's all free. Like you don't have to do any sort of anything for it. It's like it's just simply tuning in.
Yeah. And really what all we have to do is get out of our own way. Like what's your biggest tip for that for people? Like how do we because this theme keeps coming up and feel so grateful that I'm able to have such wise people on this podcast, but the theme of like, hey, this is all free. Like you have access to this. Like it's a very empowering thing and I'm so grateful that so many people keep sharing that, but it's that even that is confusing. Right? Like because we don't know how to get out of our own way. So what advice do you have for that?
Yeah, I find that the biggest like thing that comes up again and again in my clients, or especially around the beginning part of when we start working together, is there's a talk track and a belief around I'm too busy, I don't have time. Everyone's
Mm,
stuck in this busy loop. I don't have the time, I don't have the time.
mm,
It's either I don't have the time or they struggle with consistency or discipline and they just identify with like I'm not consistent, I'm not disciplined, like I need guidance in some kind of way, like or accountability, right? Which is very, valid. Accountability works great in different layers of it. But I think when people, the biggest thing, which is does take work, right, is really checking your belief around I'm too busy, I don't have the time,
yes.
right? Of like I'm depending on, and that goes back to what I said earlier in the conversation about. Am I doing the things that I say I want to do? Like, if my goal is to
Yes.
connect with myself and feel and more self care this year and all of that, do my actions actually line up? And
Yes.
doing these small actions that's where you find the congruence. When someone's like, I want to do all these things, but like my calendar's packed full for the rest of the year, like it's misalignment. So it's rewriting that story around I do have the time for the things that matter for me, for the things that are important to me, rather than like, I'm too busy. And that
Yes.
takes practice. It takes practice.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've been feeling that, but I feel like that's the energy of this moment. Like that's the work. We now have like less than 2 weeks before we head into the fire horse year, but it's always a work in progress. But I feel like that's the important work right now is like how are you aligning your actions to make all these things that you want completely true? Like how are you changing your relationships? How are you changing for me it was a big one of changing my relationship with social media. How are you changing your relationship to alcohol maybe? How are you changing how you prioritize your time, the things you say yes to? It feels like all of that's just like coming in hot for people right now and it's like it's time to put the things in place and time to do the work.
Yeah, for sure. It's like walk the walk energy this year. It's like it's
Yes,
time to start
yes.
doing what we say we want to do.
Yes. And speaking of that, I want to talk about you have a year-long program. I want to get into the details of that program, but I first want to talk about the time frame, like a year. You don't see that much. We see 30 days to manifest your dream life, a 3-month container, maybe a 6-month container, right? But I love this. I love the container of a year. I did a year-long container that I hosted a year and a half ago, and it was life-changing for myself and the women in it, and to see each other through that entire year, it made me realize like you can't have real transformation in less time than that. And I didn't necessarily have the language until you and I spoke to this, but it was because of all the different cycles and the shifts and how much we're different parts of us are changing and shifting in each cycle. And so I want to talk to you about your thoughts behind that, like the value of that type of container, what you've seen come out of it, what your intention is behind it.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, definitely by design that well within is that 12-month journey to take us through the 4 seasons, to go through the full lunar cycles or multiple, cycles throughout the year. But just personally, I'm now on my third year-long container that I've been in as like someone that's being coached, like go a mastermind or a
Mm,
coaching container. And so I've seen firsthand that year, that spaciousness of a year, everyone's going to have highs, lows, crazy things happen, right? A lot happens
yes.
in the year. People are getting married, they're having kids, they're getting divorced, they're changing jobs. Like so much is happening. So just being able to hold that space and hold that container, at least for my community at this point, felt like the most. I was really, the message that kept coming through for me last year was like, go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. Like, go deeper with your community. They are
Yes.
ready for it. Like, we are ready for to hold this space. And so I really wanted to have the year-long container just from my own experience of being in year containers, as well as just like for when I was in the fall last year and I was letting myself sit with like, I'm going to create this program. I don't know what it looks like, but it's going to, like, the name came and then the ideas came and then the guests came. Like I used fall intentionally to start to like just go
Mm,
inward into my creative little zone and like start to birth this, project or this program. And
yeah.
so similar to that, when I had the aha moment of like the cycles, the moon, the seasons, for this, when I was thinking of like, okay, it's a year long, I know like a couple of things, but when I started to, for me, it clicked when I thought, of course, it's like the seasons and the cycles and like the themes. Like I was like,
Mhm.
this is a work I've been doing for years. I just haven't put it all into one program and experience and something that I could bring my community into. So yeah, I'm so excited. We just had our kickoff call just a few weeks ago, or just last week actually, and it feels like everyone also that's in it right now. We have about 35 women or so in there so far, and we have 2 men in there as well. Everyone's like, this is exactly what I've been craving, and that for me as the
Yes.
creator, I'm
Yes.
like, yes, this is exactly what I've been craving too. So I feel like that's like
Yes.
good feedback.
Well, and there's so many layers to it. One, the commitment of everyone to, and the safety that you, I'm sure, are witnessing and that I've witnessed of like, hey, we're all in this together for a year. We've all committed to this. We're all that, like, there's a certain level of safety and security and comfort in that, but also like, well, everyone here means business, right? Like, we are all on the same level of like really committed to this growth, this expansion, this alignment. Um, and then also the permission to not have to change your life in 30 days or six, like the permission to not be reactive and give yourself, as you've been repeatedly talking about, space. It's a different kind of space, right? Give yourself that space for transformation, because I think that the 30-day, the 3-month programs, it's like that is still, you're still in that reactive energy of like, okay, I've got 3 months to really change my life and make some big decisions and get in alignment and do some big things. And it's like, it's a losing battle. Like, it's not going to happen, or it's not going to happen in the most aligned way, right? You're going to feel pressure. Like it just doesn't work.
Yeah, the power of simplification. Like the theme, for example, this month for us is masculine and feminine energy. So we have one thread in our chat that's like, this is the theme. So anything about masculine and feminine energy, we're dropping in reflections, we're dropping in resources and all of that. But we're focused on this is the theme for the month, right? Like, let's really tune into like, how am I bringing the feminine into my life? What is the wounded masculine? Like, we're just like really focusing in on these themes that are connected to, the season that we're in. And I find that like, let's just simplify. Let's simplify
Yeah.
that, having like a little bit of focus versus like, let's try to change everything in our lives today. That I
Yes.
find is like people are really wanting that. Plus the community aspect of like, while there are a good chunk of the group that's here on Guam, people are all over. People are in Hawaii. We have someone in the UK. We have someone in like East Coast, West Coast, like everywhere. Like, and it just bringing all these different people together
Yeah.
that new perspectives, new connection. Yeah, that craving, that sense of like these people get it, even if we're not meeting in person all the time, right? But these people, I can go here when I want to plug in and when I want to be in this energy and in this frequency, and like that can exist in a WhatsApp chat pinned to your
Yeah.
your threads. It's like there's a sense of like safety and comfort in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, Livia, you're the real deal. And we are so lucky to have you on this earth during this time, like guiding and helping so many. I have one last question for you. You have 20 seconds that you're going to interact with someone, the only 20 seconds you're going to interact with them, and you want to share something that's really going to impact them and that they're going to carry with them to help change their life. What do you say?
Wow, that's a good one. Okay, the first thing that comes to mind that as you share that is a message that for me has like really been ringing in the background for a couple of years now, which is like just this idea of readiness, right? And a lot of people feel like they need to feel ready and have the perfect conditions to change. Where it really is this decision, right? It's a choice. I'm like, I'm ready now. It's go time
Yeah.
now. It's not all going to be the perfect conditions, right? It's actually most of the times not going to be the perfect conditions.
Yeah.
But that feeling of like everyone has something on their heart that they know, like, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could start that. I wish I want to go back to school. I want to, like, everyone has that. They all know, like, there's something lingering. So I would just invite people to just decide, right? It's like, I'm deciding that
Mm,
I'm ready and like really leaning into that choice because that has huge ripple effects when we realize like, oh, I'm actually not going to feel comfortable doing this. It's actually going to be an
yeah.
edge. And the more
Yeah.
people can just like start before you're ready, like the more magic I think people will bring into the world.
I love that. Start before you're ready because what I've found, and tell me if you found this too, is like it's actually just taking that step that's uncomfortable. It's not that big of a deal after once you like make the decision or, take the leap. That's the hard part. And then you're like, oh, now I'm in it and I just have to navigate and execute. So it's really like just this momentary in the big scheme, it's this momentary pain, we'll call it, that just becomes such a resistance for people. And it's like, no, it's just opening the door and walking through. Like that's all you have to do. And I think like that visual of that is like, okay, there's a door here. You can let that door stop you, and you can keep like go spiraling and going down rabbit holes of what could be behind that door. But you just walk through the damn door. you know?
100%. And it goes back to self-trust, right? It goes back to like, I can figure this out. Everything is figure outable. I literally have that quote
Yes.
somewhere. It's like everything is figure outable. And when you're operating from that energy of like, okay, well, what if the world shuts down after I start my business? What if this happens, through even, that energy around happens a lot in motherhood, as you know, right? You're like surrendering to the process, right? But knowing that like we're gonna
Yes.
figure it out. We're gonna figure out whatever happens, we're
Yes.
gonna figure it out. And like if you can apply that like that thing that women experience through pregnancy and birth into like everyday life, then it does become this superpower of like trusting yourself fully.
Oh yeah, women especially. I'm like, okay, you had a kid? You can literally do
You're
anything.
fine.
You can literally do
Can't start
anything.
anything.
Yes. Like, why would you ever doubt yourself? I remember after I had my daughter, my first kid, this one that I'm pregnant with is my second and last. But I remember after having her, I was just like, women are incredible. Like I always felt that before, but I was like, we are literally superhuman. Like this is insane. Like how, and I had this really trippy experience of like, how does the patriarchy exist? How are women not in more positions of power? How are people like men just not bowing at our feet? Like, and I had that spiral for a while after because I was like, just like, this is this is beyond magic, like what we can do.
Yes,
Oh,
completely. And we
yeah.
activate it more and more with the cyclical living. So that's your ROI.
Yes.
It's like magic,
Yes.
that
Yes.
magical.
Activate your magic. I love that. I love that. Livia, you are incredible. This has been a really lovely conversation. And I know so many gems of wisdom for our listeners. How can people follow you? How can they be a part of your retreats, your sessions, anything that you have going on?
Yeah, so I hang out most on Instagram, so you can find me at Ina Wellness Collective. It's spelled I-N-A. Ina is the Chamorro word that means to illuminate or to shine a light on. Sometimes people are like,
Hmm.
"Is your name Ina?" But no, it means so it's Ina Wellness Collective on Instagram, inawellnesscollective.com. You can find about Well Within coaching programs. I have a podcast called Illuminated Path and retreats. We have some amazing retreats in the works. Lots of fun destinations. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. And we will link all that. Any retreats coming up that you want to plug?
They are full at the moment, but
Oh, look at you, girl.
going
Love
back to
that.
Philippines and Bali this year, but definitely planting the seed for to host a retreat in Japan. I'm looking at destination or locations there, and then my bucket list for next year for 2027 is going to be Italy. I'm half Italian too, so I'm like, I need to retreat in
Amazing.
Italy. So
Yes.
yeah, definitely more to come though, and yeah, it was so nice to connect with you, and yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yes, awesome. I will link all of that in the show notes. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Make sure you follow Livia. Thank you so much, Livia. Thank you all. We'll see you on the other side.